Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show for what is a first on the channel. The Gooners Talk podcast is going down a very, very different route with our first expert members show. Really, really happy to be joined by three absolutely fantastic people. They're amazing supporters of the channel, and what they've done with the channel in terms of helping it financially means that we've got things like the new intro for the show, which you just saw, new software, new hardware, which all goes into making the show as really as good as it can be. So best way I can give back to these people is obviously to give them the opportunity to come on the show and have their say about things on Arsenal, and that is exactly what we're going to do today. So let's go through the intros first off. He has been on before, it's fair to say. It's Owen. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, man. Putting a bit of pressure on us with this expert status. It's not a word you should throw about. Like, I'm an absolute moron. I don't even know why you've asked me back on, let alone on the debut of this.
I mean, you signed up for that. So to be fair, although I set that label, you did sign up for that. So, I mean, I can't be blamed. And it's, Mike is a man that knows other Mike, as in Gooners Pod Mike, rather well.
Yeah.
Probably been messed up beyond belief at this point in his life. But how are we, Mike? Are we good?
Everything's good, Tom. Thanks.
Good stuff. I'm sure that Mike will be watching back, and he'll tune in live eventually with eager eyes and eager ears, I'm sure. So look forward to that. And finally, it's Max, a.k.a. TD Shiftz. How you doing, mate?
How you going, boys? How things?
All good, mate. Obviously, you join us in the chat box very, very often, so it's fantastic to hear your actual noise rather than what's going on in the chat box. But let's jump straight into the.
I think the reason you brought each other on, I think it's because of the luscious beards. We're all growing, seem to be growing.
Yeah, I mean, I am embarrassed because I trimmed this yesterday after I got my hair finally done, which means I don't have to wear my hat anymore, which is great. But usually the likes of John and Drew, yes, I mean Mike's got his hat on.
You saw it. It's a lot going down under here.
I'm usually put to shame with the amount of beards that come on this show. But obviously we're here to talk about the Arsenal and get your thoughts on everything that's going on. If you didn't check out earlier on in the in the day, rather, we had a chat with Andrew, aka Ogblast. I was going to say Ogblast, aka Arseblog, which you definitely would have heard of. And if you haven't heard of it, I don't know why, but you should really go and check it out. But we're here to talk about some of the stuff that we talked about with Andrew and a lot more. But the main sort of focus at the moment is, of course, Sunday's match against Spurs in the North London derby. And I want to get the feeling because Spurs have gone on a weird run of games since Project Restart, and they've been incredibly boring to watch. And I have had to sit through a couple of their games. Everton and Bournemouth were mind-numbingly depressing, it's fair to say, to watch. Even as someone who enjoys them dropping points, it was almost unenjoyable to sit through that, and especially when Bournemouth had that goal ruled out towards the end. I mean, they got so excited that the Bournemouth Twitter account actually tweeted out that they'd still scored, which was quite entertaining too. Owen, I'm going to go to you, mate, first. In terms of the North London derby, on a scale of sort of 1 to we're going to smash them, how confident are you about this game? You don't sound too confident.
No, I do. Probably about a 7, I would say. And I tell you the reason being, obviously, as you touched on, since the restart, they've sort of been extremely inconsistent, and I would say very lucky to even get away with some of the points that they have. Bournemouth, as you mentioned, was a lucky escape for them. The match against Everton, they arguably deserved to get nothing out of that game, and the point against Manchester United, the 100% never deserved to get anything from that game either. So they're sort of scraping by at the minute, whereas we're sort of in a brilliant run of form. And I want people to remember as well that even though it felt like a sort of disappointment coming away with just a point from Leicester, that doesn't impact the run of form that we're on at the minute. We're still flying high. If you had have told me before Wolves and Leicester that we would have got 4 points from them fixtures, I would have took your hand off. Another factor I think coming into this game as well, normally with a derby, the crowds play a massive part. Atmosphere is going, especially in their new stadium. But I actually think it benefits in the way that one of our biggest problems over the last few years have been that our players just can't handle pressure. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing sort of increased levels of performance from some of the people who we maybe would have thought would have been on the way out of Arsenal. we're really seeing people up their game and become a lot calmer. And I attribute that down to the more relaxed atmosphere in the stadium, where the sort of more technical side of the game comes in. So yeah, I actually think that we stand a very, very good chance going into this game.
Well, most professional man in the world, keeping himself muted. Fantastic stuff. No, I agree with you completely. I think that confidence has certainly been an issue with this Arsenal side going back to the start of the season, but things seem to be turning around. And if anything, we've seen some issues on the pitch with Spurs. We saw what happened during at halftime in the Everton game with Son and Lloris. And even though it seemed to be sorted out quite quickly, it's just that sort of mental fragility that Arsenal can prey on. Mike, if I come to you next, in terms of sort of that squad, we were talking about this on the pod the other day, that if you look at Spurs' sort of individual players, player for player, if I'm being very humble, they probably outmatch us on the pitch in terms of certain positions. But how do you feel about tackling this Spurs team?
Yeah, I mean, you could always make the argument that like Son, incredibly tricky player to play with. You got Kane, always tends to score in North London derbies. But overall, like I think player for player, you can make an argument that they do have specific players that are better than ours. But for me, it's all about Arteta magic right now, to be honest with you. I know Owen mentioned that not having a crowd might be beneficial to us. I actually think not having a crowd right now is making us lose out, actually, because for me, the confidence, I'm a big believer that the players give the crowd the confidence versus the other way around. So the way we've been playing, I could only imagine that first half versus Leicester City with Emirates full, the place would have been going crazy right now. That's my point of view. So actually, I generally think that we stand a better chance at beating Spurs just because of the fact that, yeah, we don't have the crowd, even though, can't remember, we're playing at home. I can't even track this anymore with no crowds.
We're away from home.
We're away. But for me, the confidence comes from Arteta. I mean, I really do believe that a lot of these players with an actual straight game plan, and you could hear every single player say he narrows down points. He talks to them by opponent. We no longer are a team that just say, hey, we play the Arsenal way, so teams will fall in line. It seems like Arteta comes in, he has a game plan for everything. So I think overall, even though you could argue that they have some individual players that might be better than ours, but I think with the proper game plan and the way the Spurs players have at least been playing recently under Mourinho, I think we got a proper chance.
Max, I'm going to pick on something that Mike said there about the actual ground. Going to the Spurs' new stadium for the first time, no one's going to be there, which is obviously, in a way, helps us. It doesn't feel like away games really exist anymore with how the crowd isn't had that mental factor and having that impact on the team. Is that legitimate, though? How much do you think it will prey on the minds of Spurs not having that crowd behind them during the game?
Look, with the sort of terms of the away crowd, I think it plays a big part for certain teams. It's specifically down to lower teams for those extra 12 men sort of added support. When in terms of comes into those other bigger teams, there's certain teams that struggle with it and certain teams that don't really phase them too much. Obviously Man City, a great team, they great players, so they don't really care if their fans are there or not. Liverpool, with the stats of where they are right now, they've obviously been crowned champions and whatever. Teams like down the lower bottom towards Norwich and Brighton, I think they sort of struggle with in terms of the extra crowd, because obviously Watford and Leicester and everything else obviously very crowd dependent in terms of performance based wise and everything else. Just wanted to touch on what Eoin was saying is towards the thing. I think man for man, I think we have been slightly better, slightly but not by much, slightly better than obviously Spurs this season. Obviously with the likes of Aubameyang scoring 20 plus goals this season. Obviously Pepe sort of transitioning through three managers, but still sort of finding his feet. Obviously the likes of Saka that's coming through, and what a talent he seems to be playing at the moment. Obviously, Gabriel Martinelli is obviously injured, but he'll be back next season for the full one. So I expect him to play quite a bit. Obviously defense. The funny thing is as worse as our defense has been, we've actually conceded less goals than Tottenham, and that's saying something. Considering how bad our defense has been. Obviously the only thing that there's only three players that actually rated Spurs, and that's obviously Son, Lucas Moura and obviously non-Bele. So, I mean, apart from that, you know, what can you say? But no.
Yeah, no, sorry, just the two things I wanted to follow on from there, the 2 points made. We keep repeating the term man-to-man against Spurs, but the thing that we'll have to remember is that ever since Mikel Arteta has come into this Arsenal side, the transformation hasn't been individually, I would say. The transformation has been systematic in the way that he's setting the team up, the way he has them playing, and that the improvement in the system is the reason you're seeing improvement in the individuals. So in terms of how we set up against Spurs, well, I think the 3 at the back, or whatever, 5 at the back, however you want to say it, with the with the 3 centre halves at the back, a big feature I could see in this game is a frustrated Harry Kane. We all know Harry Kane performs at his best when he's playing between the sticks, really occupying that 6-yard box. But Harry Kane is well known for getting frustrated very quick when he's getting marked out of a game and dropping deep and trying to receive the ball deep, which he is massively ineffective at doing. So that could be a massive part in the game. The second point I wanted to touch on is something that's really, really frustrating me. I manage a Sunday League team here, and we're constantly hearing the thing about, without the fans this, without the fans that. 99% of football played all around the world is played without fans. Sunday League players still walk out every single weekend.
Have you been impacted heavily by not having fans at the ground?
Oh, massive, huge. Just that one fat guy standing doing the line.
That used to be my dad doing that.
No, but it's just if you are a professional footballer and you can't find the motivation within yourself to get yourself riled up for a North London derby, you shouldn't be putting the shirt on.
Yeah, it makes complete sense when you say that, because there is still something though that I will slightly disagree with, because I don't know if you watched I'd be surprised if you haven't, but if you haven't seen the Invincibles documentary that came out a few years back, you should. And Jens Lehmann used to talk about how he loved being in an away Spurs stadium in White Hart Lane, because he loves the atmosphere of the pure hatred, because it almost propels you on to be even better, to try and want to beat this side even more. So we talk about how Spurs won't have that home advantage, but actually sometimes in a derby you can have the opposite, and that boosts you. Although saying that now, I'm kind of talking myself out of it, thinking, well, this Arsenal side mentally are nowhere near that of what the Invincible side were, and so therefore maybe it was a mental fragility that actually impacted them in the opposite direction. Mike, where do you sort of stand on that sort of thing? Sorry, I'll come back to you.
I know that.
No, I was just going to say Jens Lehmann's a psychopath. That's
no. I'm actually with you, Tom, in the sense that when you talk Vieira, you talk the legends, Invincibles. They were a different breed. You often hear stories that they're coming down the line, they're getting ready to go into the field, and they already felt that they already won the game. I don't think it's impossible for this group of players to achieve that. It's just I don't think they're nowhere near to that extent of confidence yet. I think they still need a lot of time together, a lot of planning. So in this circumstance, I don't agree with that. I don't think a lot of these players could get motivated in that way. Another thing is, I think the majority of the Invincibles, they were there, and they always had a crop of old players to kind of establish what the North London derby meant to, or should mean, for every single player that plays. But the truth is, we have a lot of new players, right? I mean, if you think about it, I think Martinez or Bellerin are the longest serving players right now. And as of right now, I mean, Martinez just came into the fold. So Martinez will know what it is, Bellerin, potentially Xhaka. I mean, he seemed to live these games at another level. That's just could be, me seeing things that are not there. But it's up for the players to get motivated. But we also have a manager, and I bet that he's played countless North London derbies. He's lived some crazy ones himself, so he knows what it is. And if there's something I could say about me feeling confident about Teta, is he doesn't underestimate anybody, and I really do believe he's great at selling the player, selling the atmosphere, selling the importance of the players. So I think he's really hammering the point with his non-negotiables that, you know, if you're at this club, you're going to play for the shirt.
Yeah, and we'll come on to a player in Guendouzi in a bit that a lot of fans are citing a reason for him to stay, that he is one of those in the dressing room that will grab people by the scruff of the neck, get them up for games like this because he's got that passion and drive. And it also makes me think back to another documentary, being the '89 one, where Lee Dixon is talking about how he was basically put up against the wall before the North London derby and told, you're a Northerner, you don't really get what this is about, but you really need to be at it. And if you don't play well, then there's going to be a problem, sort of thing. And you just can't see too many of them characters. However, as you said, Arteta does seem like the type of guy that can galvanise this team. Let's look at some of the characters then, Max. Guendouzi is a guy that has divided opinion, it's fair to say, amongst the fan base. Where are you on the Frenchman?
Look, personally for me, I think, you know, I think his time's up. I think, you know, obviously he's been out for a certain amount of games now, and I think, you know, the board are sort of trying to push him up the door, so to speak. You know, I think Guendouzi has the wrong kind of mental attitude for this team to sort of move forward in the progression. Personally for me, I don't think it's a sort of sort of thought process that we need to have around the team at the moment, considering that we're in sort of a not really a slump, but more of a sort of an uprise curve. You know, like I think obviously, as you know, that Arteta sort of let him train into his own devices for, you know, a couple of weeks now with his own personal training, because, you know, he's just saying to the team, he's like, you train over there, we'll be over here, because I don't want that sort of negativity around my team at the moment, because, you know, we're sort of up on an upward curve, and I think that's right to do. I mean, if you know, if everything's going well, why change it? You know what I mean? If everything's if there's no problems with, you know, sort of certain issues, then why bother trying to tamper with something? So, you know, the old saying, don't tamper with something that's not broken. You know what I mean? Like, and also I think, you know, Guendouzi, there's been a lot of rumors about him sort of going towards Atletico Madrid, and as a bit of a swap deal in terms of for Partey, and there's also used Partey and Lacazette, and there's rumors going around everywhere. So I mean, if at the end of the day, you know, we keep Lacazette for one more season, and then we ship him on to, you know, to another club like Juve or something, or whatever he decides to go, and we get Guendouzi in replacement for Partey, I think that would be a very solid midfield with the likes of Partey, Xhaka, Ceballos if he ends up staying for another year loan, Lucas Torreira if he ends up being here and doesn't rack off to Italy because he's, you know, depressed. But I think that would be sort of solid midfield three, and sort of go back up to the top four quality. You know, if you look at the likes of Liverpool, you've got Gini Wijnaldum, who came from like the second division of English Premier League, and now he's a Premier League winner. You know, Jordan Henderson, who came from Hull, you know, and he's a Premier League winner and Liverpool captain. You know, and these are the players you got to sort of build around and sort of get the hard-working players like, you know, your Jordan Hendersons, your Gini Wijnaldums, you know, your Shkodran Shakiris, you know, and all these other players that, you know, have squad depth and build around.
Yeah, I think that it raises a good point that you need to sort of build a team with balance, and balance is obviously the biggest thing and Arsenal have been so lopsided in recent times, and currently when you look at the attack is so full of quality, and we've got so many players in that department. And yet the midfield, which is obviously so important and integral to connecting our defence to the midfield through to the forward, so that we can create enough chances that those quality players can ultimately have the impact on the games that they should be having. And if people manage to check out the interview we did with Graham Hunter, when he talked about Thomas Partey, he described him as this transformative player that, whilst during the Leicester game, I highlighted that we couldn't beat the press and we were stuck in our own half for so long against Leicester, that Partey is the type of guy that can take the ball and turn things around and get you out of trouble, can absorb pressure really well. So completely take your point. If we can move Guendouzi on as a real asset at the club in terms of financial asset, in terms of what we can make for him, I think that it'll go. Whether it's a swap deal, I'm less sure on. I think we still will see, as you say, a lot of swap deals happen because of the financial situation for so many clubs. But there are clubs like Atletico that will desperately want a fee for most of their players, and swap deals may not be possible in certain circumstances. Maybe if it was a player plus money, as I think you mentioned, then you get a deal. But it's going to be intriguing to see what happens in that area. Oh,
And
in the
also, I thought-
midfielders. Oh, go on, Max. Go on.
I was just going to touch on another point that that's come across my attention recently as well. There's been a lot of sort of bad clouds around Tottenham as well. This is the other point I always wanted to touch on. There's been a lot of like bad clouds around sort of Tottenham Hotspur and the stadium and their debt, and obviously players not playing with confidence and everything else. Obviously the where they're at the moment. And personally, for me, I think is there's two sides of it. There's one side of it that's like form goes the winner in the North London derby, and they'll be out for the game because it's the North London derby, whatever. Versus the other side of it, saying it's the Jose Mourinho effect. Obviously whenever he goes, he had two terms at Chelsea, and then he came back. I think the Real Madrid job really was, and it's sort of like the confidence wise, and since he's come back from Real Madrid, I think he's sort of destroyed players' confidence. As you look at Juan Mato, he was at Chelsea originally, and then he sort of shipped him out to Man United, and because he was never going to get a game, and then he went to Man United and he destroyed his confidence even more. And Paul Pogba, Ezekiel came out recently and said, I'm so glad that Jose's gone because I'm playing with fluidity, and that's all you really need to hear from Paul Pogba to realize what kind of person he is. Obviously, and then you look at Spurs now. Dombele was probably the best player at Lyon for quite some time before he came to Spurs, and now he's not playing with any confidence, and obviously it all stems from the top. Daniel Levy's just Jose Mourinho, and I don't think Jose Mourinho has a style anymore. His style was to park the bus for like after getting a goal and then seeing the game out. But I just don't think he has the players, and I don't think the players have the drive now to play for Jose. I was on the podcast. I think it was Terry the other week. I was speaking to him. I said, and he asked me, he goes, "Where's Jose gone wrong?" I said to him, I said, "Look, I don't think Jose is up here. Doesn't have it. I think he's gone. I think he's mentally drained. I think he's going toward the latter part of his career where when we remember the Arsene Wenger era period where he was putting out weird teams, you were just standing there going, hang on, why is Ox at left back? Why is Bellerin playing at left back and what all that kind of stuff, and you just realize you go, what's he doing? And he's playing Eric Dyer, who's a central defensive midfield, as a centre back because he doesn't trust Jan Vertonghen and Navarro. So and I meant what I mean. So it's just like it's the things you just want to scratch your head and go, that's a bit interesting. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it is food for thought, isn't it? It's even more interesting watching just. You mentioned how Mourinho's mind has sort of gone and declined. I think it's akin to what we saw with Arsene Wenger towards the end of his tenure. At the start of Mourinho's reign in the Premier League, his ideas worked. He played a different style. And if you watch the Take the Ball, Pass the Ball documentary, which is mainly about Barcelona, but they go into a bit of detail about Mourinho and how when he was at Barcelona, he had a very, very different philosophy to what we saw from him when he moved to Chelsea. And maybe that was down to spite, and maybe that was because the style that when he didn't get that job at Barcelona, of course, when Pep went in for that job as well, that he's just suddenly went, right, my style is going to be anything except what Barcelona play like. And that worked for a time, and especially worked for Inter when they obviously beat Barcelona in the semi-final of the Champions League. But now we're starting to see these technical players across Europe being developed, and they're just not suited to what Mourinho wants to do. And I think it raises a really, really good point. Owen, talking about the Spurs side in a little bit more detail then, and I feel like we're yo-yoing around this whole conversation, which is absolutely fine. But in terms of like the impact that Mourinho will have on that side on Sunday, what do you predict him do? Because we've sort of seen him in his press conferences go classic Mourinho, try to get a buy out of Arteta. Arteta's having none of it, which is very Pep-esque. And Pep only really bit one time and he ended up swearing in a press conference. And I'm hoping we don't see Arteta do the same thing. But do you feel like he will sort of tackle the part of the bus? We don't know if he's going to do that, but do you think Arteta is going to set up specifically to attack what we expect to be a very defensive styled Mourinho team?
Yeah, I just think it's within Mourinho's nature to sort of always revert back to the park the bus tactics when he meets any sort of formidable team. it's always the way he's been, so I couldn't see him changing it now.
Nice compliment. I haven't heard much about Arsenal. Formidable. Wow.
Well, I use that word lightly at the minute. Sort of like expert. No, but no, I can't see him changing, to be honest. I think you'll see them sit deep and try and soak up a lot of the pressure. Try and hit us in the counter. Which, do you want to know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, is probably actually works in our favour, because I actually don't see Tottenham as the best of counter-attacking teams. I don't think they do that very well. I don't think the Harry Kane is the sort of exact molded player you want for a counter-attacking team. I don't think that there's a massive amount of creativity that comes from the midfield to hit you on the break, and then I could see Arteta maybe going with a very attacking team in the form of, I think you might. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that this won't happen, but I could see it being a front three of Aubameyang, Saka, and Pepe for this one. I don't think that Lacazette has done himself any justice, really, since the restart with his finishing. I know he got that goal that who was that against? Wolves, was it? No, Wolves it was, yeah. But even at that, I don't know. The man is just absolutely lacking confidence at the minute. He's being kept out of the side by, what is just a fresh academy graduate. So I'm not sure. I don't think we'll change our system too much. I don't think that is Arteta. I don't think that's the great thing about Arteta in comparison to Unai Emery. He isn't that sort of negative Nantes that'll go and over focus on what the opponent is going to do. He will more try and embed the style and philosophy that he has been trying to do so far. So no, long story short, I could see them parking the bus and us trying to pick them apart for the 90 minutes.
And that's always sort of a struggle with Arsenal sometimes. The amount of times we see ourselves camped outside the opposition box, passing the ball around, trying to find a way through. And it doesn't always work, especially against a team that is going to be so on it and doing what Mourinho wants them to do. It's going to be a big chess game, I think, what we'll see on Sunday.
Boring 0-0.
Yeah, possibly. Very, very possibly. Mike, I'm really sort of intrigued to get onto the subject of who might play. And Eoin brought up those thoughts about it, because I agree that Lacazette, it was really irritating to see him not score or not take those chances on I think it was midweek, it must have been now, against Leicester, because I put him in my predicted lineup for the game because he scored against Wolves, as Owen said, and I really wanted him to sort of carry on that form and keep the confidence high. But it just seems as soon as he misses one chance, his head now just goes. Do you think this is just purely a player with a really fragile mentality, or is he just someone who thrives off confidence?
Yeah, with Lacazette, I initially just thought bad luck, because he was having a few like easy shots, a few headers that, I mean, I've seen his highlights with Lyon. I've seen him play with us, and I'm like, those are normally just easy shots for him. Sometimes he has a tendency of making some really complicated shots into easy shots. I mean, the goal that he scored, Wolves, I believe. I mean, a back towards goal, flips, scores, pretty amazing. But I think just based on form and just the fact that he hasn't been firing at all cylinders, I got to agree with Owen here. I do think it's going to be Lack on the left. You got Aubameyang up front. And on the right, I'm assuming if Pep actually trained, I think I read somewhere that when he came back for Leicester City, even though he was on the bench, he hadn't really actually trained. I know what it is, have a newborn baby, so he's probably up night, right? So after a full, yeah, I think, and you know what? Quite frankly, Saka on the left, Pep on the right would be ideal for us, because if my expectation, along with Owen, is that they're going to sit back. That's Mourinho's trump card right there, right? Anytime he comes up against a formidable team, he tries to absorb as much pressure as possible, frustrate them, and then counterattack. So what I've seen with Pep and Saka is both of them have been extraordinary to open up defenses. They're able to take on a player and put a cross in. Tierney on the left with Saka, ideal. His crosses have been fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So anyways, Saka on the left, Aubameyang in the middle, Pep on the right, with Bellerin and Tierney on both flanks. Oh, my man, Mustafi.
Yes, your boy.
My boy Mustafi's going to start.
It's amazing what he's done. It's amazing. And I was talking earlier with Andrew about it, and I was saying about how the thing with Arteta is that I have such confidence in him going forwards now, because a lot of managers, Mourinho again, we bring up, Guardiola to a lesser extent as well, when they join clubs and are given a transfer window, one of the earliest things they look at is the centre-back area. And usually they bring someone in, and usually it's a lot of money. We've seen Pep Guardiola bring in Laporte, which cost them a lot of money, and he has transformed that Man City defence into the team that obviously broke over 100 points and was fantastic in that season. But also, you've got a situation now where Arsenal are defensively in a bit of a mess, but they're in a mess with a lot of players. We've got loads of centre-backs. We've not necessarily had to need to buy one out of necessity.
We have
because of a lack of numbers. We've got loads, but the thing is they're just not quite the level that we want them to be. But the thing is that Arteta is able and has been able to improve them. I mean, Max, I'll come to you on this topic. Even David Luiz looks improved under Arteta, and I know that he made the mistake in the Man City game, but since he came back from that suspension, he's looked better. That probably is down to the system. And this is the question I'm going to ask you: is do you think that our centre backs, the ones that we have, because defensively there are still many questions, even with the improvements, do you think that Arteta's going for this back three because he doesn't trust them to play in a back two?
Look, I think you just nailed it pretty much straight on the head. You know, I think the back three does work better with David Luiz in it, because he works better in a back three than a back two. Obviously, Mustafi, you know, is not so error prone, because he knows he's got someone that's right next to him who can cover if he pushes forward. Class National so rejuvenated in a back three. Now he's in part of the back three because he's part, like, when he was playing for Schalke, he's actually playing in a back three. Funnily enough, when he was in Bundesliga Team of the Year, he was actually playing in a back three. As it was more of a left wing back / centre back. So I think it's sort of down towards the system. Also, just touching on the point that I think Aaron was making. So not Aaron. Mike was. I think your name is Mike. I think was saying. I think personally for me, I think I was going back to the point that you just highlighted when you came up on the chat. I think, like I said, obviously he scored against I think Wolves, and obviously had that goal ruled offside during the Leicester game. You know, I think, you know, it was a bit tight offside, but he still tried finding it. Unfortunately, it was offside, but it's still, you know, obviously you got to look at the Bellerin cross as well. You know, obviously you hit it the stretch Schmeichel as well. And you know, you got to remember that the ball's coming at him at a reasonable speed, and it's also quite wet, so he's not going to get the right amount of contact. I'm not saying trying to excuse that the rain was contact, obviously, due to the thing, but obviously the balls.
Someone's going to compare you to an AFTV regular in a second.
No. But I'm just putting it out there. It's quite difficult to, obviously, because, you know, obviously there's certain circumstances as well, you know. But, you know, obviously, but you got to also remember that Lacazette scored in the 4-2 Tottenham game last year, and obviously he scored in the 2-0 as well when we had still had Alexis. So, you know, he knows what this game means. He knows what the North London derby means. Bellerin surely knows. Xhaka knows what it means. You obviously remember that obviously the performance he played, you know, in the 4-2 when he was playing with Ramsey, and Ramsey was still here, and Ramsey did that pass to Aubameyang, and what a beautiful goal that was. And you know, and these are the things you got to question. You got to question: do they really understand, you know, what the North London derby means? They've been here a long time. They should know what it means. We know what it means, and what it means to the fans as well. You know, so and we just hope that they know what it means, and they can go out there and put a performance in.
Yeah, it's so important that they do understand what this game is, and hopefully they will. And I guess it comes back full circle to talking about the impact that not having the fans will have on a derby. And I mean, we've seen games played against things like Liverpool and Everton played, and it ended very, very tamely. And I'm hoping that we're not going to see the same sort of result in this game, especially considering the importance to both sides. Let's move on and talk about some admin, and by admin I mean finances, which is always a fun topic to talk about. Eoin, the news came out today Now, I'm not the most clued up on this because finances go over my head so easily, but I've had a read into it. We discussed it with Andrew earlier on, and what I'm basically gleaning from this is that Kroenke has released funds so that we can be more stable and more control over our finances come the summer. I believe there's a possible loan in this as well, but the loan is being sort of spread out over a number of years, so the interest rate is quite low. But what's your thoughts on this? Do you think it's something that fans should praise the man that everyone hates so often, or do you think it's just something that he should do and it's not even something that we should look to praise?
Just to start, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm an absolute fucking moron. so you're definitely, you might not know finance, but you definitely know more than me about it. I was talking to Drew that you have on all the time in our group chat last night, and he was trying to break it down for me. I'll not lie, I still don't completely get my head around the whole workings of it, but from what I do understand is yes, just basically that the cash reserve that we have of anywhere between 30 to 40 million has now been released. Basically, essentially, is to dumb it down in that way. And in terms of what that does to our budget, I've heard it could be anything from the budget has gone from 30 to 40 million up to 80 million to 120 million. There's different figures being bummed about.
Chest is back.
Well, see, this is the thing I will come on to next to say is, just because there's been a restructuring in the finances of the club, we have to wait and see before we praise the Kroenkes. Everyone is jumping about, throwing their arms in the air, saying that this is the Kroenkes finally investing in the club, in the transfer market and backing Mikel. But really, you have to look at the circumstances this has come under. Unless you were hiding under a rock, maybe you're a Man United fan. We've been going through a global pandemic, and obviously the club has taken a massive hit financially through gates, through merchandise on match days. So what you have to remember is that players took a pay cut. We didn't furlough any staff. And I think the rough estimate of the operating cost for Arsenal is £28 million per month. So when we see 30 million being freed up, or 40 million, or however much you want to put a number on it, essentially it doesn't really mean that that's going to be reinvested into the squad. That could just be for maybe the losses that the Kroenkes have seen come out of their pocket, So I'm not sure. I really think we need to sort of hang back and wait to see how it plays out. And in terms of finances for the club, we were talking about some players earlier, Lacazette, Guendouzi. We're talking about swap deals and everything like that. And I think the way that we should be looking at it is not relying on that investment to be coming, but actively seeking to make profit. Something I always say is that Arsenal fans, we get overly sentimental with players that, we complain, we don't have money to spend, but yet when anybody is linked out of the club, we all lose our shit and start freaking out. So in terms of but Tom, something that you've always sort of preached about is that sort of Leipzig, the Red Bull format, basically, of taking young players in, raising their net value, and then moving them on for a profit. It's how you stay current as a big club. And to me, we have exactly that system in place. We just don't talk about it. You look at Saka, Martinelli, Guendouzi, even. I'll name the three that I would be looking to shift on to try and make us put us into a financial sort of place to be being a lot more active in the transfer market. If you look at that Lacazette Partey deal, I really think there's something to go off there. As we all know, the window that Lacazette signed for us through, he was originally supposed to be going to Atletico Madrid, but they were handed a transfer ban. So essentially, we were a second choice from the beginning. It doesn't look like he's overly enjoying his football at the minute, and you're talking that could be either, I wouldn't imagine a straight swap, but maybe Lacazette plus 10, 15 million maybe would get you him. Guendouzi, how much do you think that Guendouzi's worth? I would say if it's the clubs coming in, PSG or Barcelona, whoever this is, you're talking maybe 40 million, 30, 40 million for Guendouzi. They always overpay. And then another person I would be looking to maybe push out as well, and a big part of his value is his marketability, is Hector Bellerin. he's a player now that is sort of, what age is Bellerin? 24, 25.
25,
Yeah.
25.
So he's a peak value now, and this is what I mean by the sentimentality of our players. We have to remember this is a business. As you said, these guys weren't sitting there when they were 9 years old, surrounded by their family, celebrating the FA Cup wins and stuff. This is business. And at the end of the day, these are three of the most valuable assets that we have. And they could put us from a very sort of inactive transfer market into, as you said, having a war chest through the sale of three players.
I think that for someone who describes themselves as an effing moron, you did pretty well to describe the situation.
Just good at talking shit.
Just a question for Eoin, just out of curiosity, like, I understand the value that the transfer money that Bellerin could bring in. Are you going with Suarez or are you going with Mainsley? Just in case, let's just say hypothetically he does leave, right? And I fully understand why. I fully understand why you would want him to sell, the transfer raise funds and everything. But just out of curiosity, your opinion.
Yeah, well, basically, for now, that's the key word behind this is for now. I will be going with Suarez and keeping Mainsley as a backup. I haven't seen enough. I've seen enough of Suarez within Southampton to know that he can do a job. But long term, I don't think that he's the solution to a right back problem. But look, this is my worry coming into the transfer market with the amount of positivity that we are having towards the end of the season, and if this carries on through the next few games and we get some results, is that I don't want us to become comfortable or content with a lot of the players that we are currently relying on just because we've hit a streak of form. Don't let that cover over. Even some of these young guys, Saka has come in, and let's just say that's dumb luck that has happened. A lot of people were holding Reece Nelson to a lot higher stead than him this season. So I really think that we can't be looking to these guys like I'll name you a few. Eddie Nketiah is still a guy that is a long way to develop. Even watching him now, yes, his effort is fantastic, but his finishing isn't clinical enough to hold that centre forward role on a consistent basis. Reece Nelson, I'm gonna get so much shit for this in the group. I don't really see it. A lot of the times I see him as a passenger in the team. He'll cover the ground, he'll do, but he doesn't really bring much. Joe Willock, I would put as the same. I'm really undecided on what kind of future Joe Willock has as well.
Because you're describing sort of exactly where my thinking is, and Mike gives me so much, for criticising Nketiah and criticising Willock. But I'm like you, I can't yet see that amazing potential that is being planted. And it might just be because they're Arsenal players.
Yeah.
Can I touch on something real quick? Yeah, I just want to touch on. I 100% agree with what Owen was saying. I don't think that Nketiah is the long-term answer originally, because I don't think he's finishing the standard we require. I don't think El Nenny's going to ever be good enough. I don't think Joe Willock's probably ever going to be good enough. Reece Nelson, I think he just runs around and he loses the ball, and I don't think his finishing is poor and his crossing is poor. So why we're keeping him? I don't think that. Obviously long-term, Shaq's playing well now, but I don't think he's going to be the long-term answer. Bellerin, as you said, you touched upon, I don't think he's going to be a long-term answer. He's had an ACL injury. He seems to have lost a lot of pace, and I don't think he's going to recover, and he's ever going to be good enough. Mustafi, Socrates, Doubles, once he's eventually moved on, these are the players that we need to move on, sort of shift out gradually, or some of them now, some of them gradually, and replace them with better players, so we have that sort of stiff competition. Because if you look at the likes of Man City, look at the likes of Liverpool, they have stiff competition everywhere. So if you're not on it, you come off, and you have a better play come on. Naby Keita's obviously been poor this season, but he's got the likes of Wynyard behind him. He's got the likes of Henderson. He knows that if he's not on it, he's going to be sold or moved on. So he's got to put 7 out of 10 performances every week, otherwise he's not playing. You know what I mean? So, and obviously they use sort of coming through as well. So the likes of the players that you've seen with the Liverpool team and everything that they like Seth Vandenberg and everything else, and all that kind of stuff, and which seems a very useful prospect. Obviously, Mason Greenwood comes through to us on Man United. As much as I don't like talking about Man United, Mason Greenwood coming through and everything else. And you also think about from this sort of window. Obviously the money's going to be tight and everything else, and we probably won't have a lot of money to play with. And if you get rid of some of these players and bring something that's better quality, you've got a bigger budget to work with, so to speak. And I also wanted to touch upon sort of the big Stan Kroenke financial sort of thing. The way that I understood it was there was assets sort of hold off in the bank, sort of 30 million assets. Now since he's paid sort of the sort of mortgages and the rent and everything else, so to speak, he's basically be able to ship from one bank account to another, which is Arsenal's bank account, and sort of his KSC's bank account. So he's able to ship money across there but sort of balancing his books, so to speak. And he's probably, if he decides to do this, he's probably deciding to say, we're going to give you a 2% interest. So basically, whatever money you make, you pay me back 2% over the next 10 years or so, sort of slowly, gradually, because of the coronavirus. You don't want to sort of rip off your arm that you're feeding it with, you know what I mean? So, but, these are the sort of things that sort of make sort of slowly positive turns, and you can sort of say, yes, in terms of giving Stan Kroenke credit, he's much like a player. You got to give him credit when he did something well. When he does something bad, you got to hold him up on it, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, it's like a player that scores one goal nearly every game. So it's hard to praise them, I suppose, when it does come around. Yes. I want to give the shout out a chat. I want to give the chat a shout out is the way I want to go with that sentence. But there's a lot of disagreement in there about the youth players. Now, I want to give you a chat box a chance to say some of that stuff, because it's only fair that they get to retort. RY says that you guys are harsh, very young players. A lot of development is still to go. Carl Halberg, one of our members, says young players need time, all of them. It's our responsibility as fans to lift them when they're struggling and bring them down to earth when they're flying, not the other way around. And Yonic Max says, how can you judge Reece Nelson when he never gets the chance to play in consecutive games? Confidence is ridiculously important, and he hasn't been given the chance really to build. So I'll give you boys a chance to sort of respond to that. In terms of where my head's at on that is that I know that I'm very critical of these young players, and it's only because obviously they're being thrown into the first team at a very young age, and usually, and what Arteta said, that these guys are playing more than they should be at this age, and that should always be taken into account. But I still think you need to be honest and critical about some of the performance that you do see, because then that's where they need to improve. And Nketiah does need to improve his finishing. I think he also needs to improve a little bit of his pressing in the right timings. It's all well and good chasing someone like a headless chicken, but it's about the timings of your press. And when you do press the right person, I think that's just part of the game that will grow. And Joe Willock I'm more critical of, because I struggle to often see the impact he's having. Like, Arteta likes to take Saka off and bring Willock on towards the end of games. And I don't like that switch, because Willock is very much more a central player to me. And so leaving that right flank very open when Saka deputises there and comes off for Willock, I struggle with that. And that leads to me criticising Willock a fair amount. And Nelson, I agree with Yonic's point. He doesn't get enough games to really build up enough of an opinion on him. But there's probably a reason behind that of why he's not getting that amount of game time. Go on, Owen.
I was just going to say there that in terms of giving young players time, and we'll have to bed. This is a sort of a phase that has come about within the last maybe 5, 6, even 10 years, whatever. But what I would like to say is, I look back to when I watched football as a kid. Steven Gerrard, from no age, was cemented in Liverpool's team. Frank Lampard, cemented in West Ham and then Chelsea's team. John Terry, young age, came in, fantastic football player. Let's even go Lionel Messi. What age was he when he started? Look at Saka. You can't turn around and say that a player who has been, these kids have been being professionally trained from a very, very young age, stuff embedded in them. You can't say that they're not developed enough by the age of 21. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't, and I hear you said all the time, experience is something that is massively, massively overrated. It just frustrates me when, put it like this, we were still saying fucking Theo Walcott was the future of Arsenal when he was 27. That's how much leeway we give our players. That sometimes these players are in the team for a reason. They train with the senior players every day, so we should expect the same from them and criticize them in the same way we would a Mustafi, a David Luiz. You know, there can't be a sense of false positivity when they're making mistakes or not performing well enough.
I also want to touch on that point as well. I think also, like, you know, as well as you know, Reece Nelson, Joe Willock, and you know, Ed Nickes played through some of the games. You know, they're not exactly like, you know, ripping up trees to, you know, force their way into the first team and say, you know, giving Arteta a headache. You know, say, hey, look at me. You know, why I am being picked. Look. I mean, you got to take account. Look at Saka. You know, look what he's done. He's played at left back. He's played at right back. He's central midfield. He's played at central attacking midfield. He's played at left wing. He's played left mid. He's played everywhere. Right. And he's done a job pretty much everywhere where he's, you know, next thing you know, he's going to be in goal. You know what I mean? So, you know, but he's taking his chances. He's only 18. You know, look at Gabriel Martinez. He's came in from the second division of the Brazilian team, and he's ripping up trees. You know, hasn't taken his time to be here. That's what I'm trying. That's the point I was trying to make about Joe Willock and Eden Nketiah and you know, Reece Nelson. That they haven't exactly stamped their authority on the first team and given Arteta to say, hey, why can't I have a turn at the first team? You know what I mean? And I really would like to see all these, you know, youth players given a chance, but also, you know, taking their chances when they've been given. You know what I mean? Whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long it is, you know. And I don't think the point you're making about Joe Willock when he comes on for Saka on the right hand side, I don't think he's exactly ripping up trees to, you know, you show Arteta that, you know, this is why I deserve to be in the first team. You know what I mean? And the only reason he's even on the bench is because obviously Ozil's being nudged out the door, and you know, Guendouzi's been nudged out the door, so to speak. So, you know, there's really no one else, you know.
Yeah, so touching on just the point about the youngsters, you mentioned Theo Walcott, right, Owen? You know, at 27 and all that, right? But I've heard, I want to say it was Lee Dixon that once said that, you know, it got to a certain point where there was young players that looked at Arsenal and said, nah, that's not where I want to go to develop at, after all, because our ex-manager, who shall remain nameless right now, from what ex-players were saying is he had the tendency of, hey, if you're good enough and you're young, the expectation was, hey, we're going to be able to chuck you into the first team and you're going to play. Now, obviously, you know, you got players like Fabregas, right? You know, an anomaly. You got players like Saka, you could even argue, or Martinelli. Other players do, I believe, need a little bit more nurturing. I have noticed, personally, my opinion is that Arteta's been able to improve nearly every single player that we have. I mean, talk about Xhaka, Mustafi. I mean, those are players that were headed to the exit door, right? Saka completely turned his career around thus far. I mean, Arteta has a habit of making adjustments that helps players, right? I mean, I could even say that Pepe looks a little bit more comfortable. I mean, that's just my opinion. He seems not so worried in defense. He seems a little bit more open, and he expresses himself more in attack. So I have faith personally. I think Martinelli, Saka, Willock, I actually think they're going to end up staying at Arsenal long term. As far as something that Max mentioned about selling young players, you know, the Guendouzi thing, I completely get it. Look, part of me, I was actually curious is how much was, I'm going to say, luck, because prior to the bust up, Guendouzi, if I remember correctly, was actually starting over Ceballos. And all of a sudden, you know, he has the big bust up. Oh, we lost Tom. Sweet. There you go, right? They had a big bust up.
We're going to be running the show the entire night until Tom gets back.
I know. There he is.
Oh, what's up? Already?
What's up? Yeah, so I believe the majority of the youth has a future. At least at the very least, they're going to give another season or two, because I mean, I've seen what Arteta done short term, improving Saka, improving Pepe, improving Guendouzi was playing. Sorry, even the overall playing of Mustafi, Xhaka, players that are more established, and then you got Bellerin that. I know he's splitting the fan base right now. A lot of people say, hey, he's not the same Bellerin. I personally, the last two two games I've seen him played, I'm seeing I see an improvement. So I don't know where you guys stand on that.
I mean, look, with the Bellerin improvement thing, I just think, I think he has improved. There's no doubt about it. Xhaka's improved. There's been no doubt about it. They're both, sort of improved as players. But I don't think it's the improvement that's going to take us to, the next level. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the next level. We want to be competing for the Champions League. We want to be in the top four. We want to be winning those Premier Leagues, and I don't think like Bellerin and Xhaka are going to be the long-term answer and everything else. Obviously, as Bellerin's just come back from an ACL and he's lost a yard of pace, and yet since he came back, and there was one good performance I remembered that which was the Chelsea game, which is a 2-2, and he was absolutely running that game ragged, and he just came back into everything else. So but also, Xhaka, obviously, since the Crystal Palace game, he seems to really have turned around his misfortunes and really sort of knuckled down and done the simple things right. And we got to give him credit for that. But but ultimately, long term, he's not going to be the long term solution. But that's just my opinion. But I think Xhaka will be here for the long term, distant future, until eventually he's moved on at the door at whenever that point is. With the Guendouzi, I think personally he's going to be nudged out the door. And I can see movements lurking around behind the scenes, so I think that's long-term answer. With also the likes of Reece Nelson, Joe Work, and I think they will also be here the long-term future. But personally, I would move them on. But that's just my opinion. But personally, I think they will still be here the long-term future, and given a loan or two, or vice versa. So,
on Xhaka, I completely agree with you that long-term, he's not a world beater. But what I could say is, as of right now, I mean, if you hear how Arteta speaks about him, he thinks the world of him. I mean, he came in, he had an opinion about him, I guess, when he was in City. They wanted to bring him in. So sometimes I believe that managers, they work with the players on a daily basis. They see things that we can't see. So, look, I could tell you I don't rate, X, Y, Z player, but as long as Arteta rates them, I mean, it's kind of what we have to go with. So, I mean, I agree with you. An upgrade would be nice, but at the same time, I mean, I guess you and I could agree that an upgrade would be nice, but that won't.
Yeah, well, that was the point I was trying to make. The players I was saying that are going to still be here, but an upgrade would be nice. But the players most likely are going to still be here for the long-term future until they ever get moved on, or whatever their contract runs out, or whatever that decides to happen. But hey, Tom, you seem to be still alive here. You're all good. You're not going to drop out again.
Can you hear me? You can, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting in. I'm so sick of this laptop. I need to get it. I need an upgrade so bad. I'm sitting here going,
can I
working.
Can I also give a quick shout out to Gunnar Eagle-Eye. Gunnar Eagle-Eye. He's also in the chat.
Yes.
He's my boy. I watch his streams all the time. Very level-headed dude, nice guy, and he always gives me a chance. Always listens to me. So nice bloke, and also
Yeah, Chig is a very nice guy, and I appreciate that. And please do go check out his channel, people. He's got his own stuff. He's doing fighting stuff with our boy Ola as well on another channel. So yeah, but sorry about me going AWOL for a second. And so you can tell when these guys are what I described as expert members, because they can take over a podcast seamlessly when the host is having technical difficulties. So I was sitting there panicking like, oh my God, it's not working. I'm going to have to ask one of the boys to try and close this video out. This is going to be ridiculous. I've had to turn this off. This cost me £200 and it will not work to save my life whatsoever. It's probably down to the laptop or the driver or something. I will try and get it sorted. But honestly, you boys have been amazing. Owen, I want to let you finish off because you wanted to say something on the topic before we close. Go on, mate.
Yeah, just two things before I go. Just to clarify before I get tarnished on Twitter, the Theo Walcott being the future thing was a joke, okay? And number two, I'm not saying
that's not a meme, mate.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't give young players time. I'm saying we shouldn't be relying on them as the people that lead us forward. Just one more thing before I think it's maybe a good spot to finish off on is but on behalf of me and the two boys and everybody else in the chat, we'd just like to say cheers for constantly putting out content, taking your time out to do this here, and another thing, giving people the opportunities. Just literally after Arteta was appointed, I come onto the podcast as a guest with Drew, and from then I have started writing for an Arsenal website, and now I've got my own weekly segment coming out interviewing fans, just sort of looking into the reasons why they love the club, and all of that was because this podcast and you taking me on. So on behalf of everybody, cheers for putting the stuff out.
I appreciate it. That's really kind of you to say. But genuinely, I always say that this show, the best thing about doing this show, it's not about obviously making the videos. And whilst I love researching players and putting out shows and talking, it's always been about like the people that come on, the people that I meet, the people that I get to go to games with now. The best thing, and I employ any of you. I mean, Owen, you'll discover this the more you do writing and you meet new people. And TD, you've got your own channel, haven't you? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Do you want to give that a shout?
So that's TD Shiftz on YouTube. Unfortunately, I won't be doing any more content until the end of the year. Don't
blame you.
When the new season starts up, I will be doing a live sort of match reaction after the game's finished. So I'll be putting those videos up every day. Unfortunately, I got slack on it because I had other commitments and everything else, so that kind of just died away the wayside.
Work is insane. Life is insane.
And also, can I just ask you two guys questions before we wrap up? 2 questions, right?
Go for
it. Score prediction for the North London Derby and your team lineup you would love to see. I'll just quickly give mine. I'll try and be quick about it. Since you got other things and everything, people probably got commitments and everything else. So obviously Martinez in goal. I'm gonna stick with Cedric Suarez. He scored that brilliant goal against I think it was Wolves. Wolves and Wolves. It was Norwich. Yeah, it was Norwich. I believe it was. Sorry, it's too long ago now. So obviously the back three of even though I would personally change it, I don't think he's going to change. But this would be my personal back three. So it would be I'm going to stick David Luiz on the left, Rob Holding in the middle, and then Mustafi on the right hand side of the back three. And then obviously I'm going to have Kieran Tierney on the left, and then obviously I'm going to stick with Ceballos and Xhaka in the middle because they've been playing well as a duo comp. So I think I'm not going to fiddle around with that because, as I said, don't fix it; it's not broken. Stick with Pepe on the right hand side. I personally would have Lacazette in the middle. That's just me because I think he gets the North London Derby and he's scored some worldies, and obviously as I touched upon the 4-2, and obviously going to have Baming on the left, and then that way you can bring the likes of Saka, Reece Nelson, whoever to, if the game's not going, obviously Lucas Torreira, Maitland-Niles, if it's not going well, you can have firepower in that way to change the game in that aspect. And I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. I don't see
confidence. I love it.
I don't see Tottenham scoring a goal. I don't think they're playing with any sort of fluidity or any sort of confidence at the moment. Even though it does go out the window during the North London Derby, or assuming that's not a penalty decision, or a refereeing decision, as we remember last year with the 4-2. Obviously Mike Dean and everything else. So that's just me. So I'll just quickly move on to you guys. So that's me done for the night.
No, that's great. I mean, 3-0 is confidence completely. I love that. The only thing I'd say is that form does go out the window in these games, as we've seen so many times before. Mike, do you want to give your lineup and a score prediction?
Yeah, I'll go 3-1 just because us and clean sheets don't always go hand in hand, and Harry Kane has a tendency of just pissing us off sometimes. So I'm going to go with the back five, Cedric, Luis, Mustafi. I like Kolasinac myself. You got Tierney on the left. Don't take Xhaka nor Ceballos out, and I'm going to go with the Saka on the left, Aubameyang in the middle, and Pep on the right, because I really do believe having those guys just down the flank, just bombarding them with centers, and Tierney and Cedric getting behind them with those through balls. I honestly think we could cut them open. So I think that'd be good. That's what I'm going with.
Crosses, by the way, for those people across the pond when Mike says centres.
I forget.
It's fine. If we had Mike on the show, he'd do his American bell whenever we come out with our Britishisms. So, Owen, scoreline and prediction, mate.
I'll keep it brief. Mine's the exact same as Mike. Only I would have Mainsley right back to deal with the pace of either Son or Bergwijn. That's basically and I'm gonna piss you right off and say 1-0 to the Arsenal with Cedric scoring. So now you have to give an honest prediction.
The TGT prediction. Love that. Brilliant stuff. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win with Cedric to score, as I've said all week. I love that. And I'm very close to all of your lineups in the combination, really, but I'm going with Saka as left wing back, Tierney as left centre back for this game. I really like that combination when those two are playing there. I think Tierney has been played so much since restart, and playing in the left centre back role does allow a little bit of respite. And I like Saka in that left wing back role. I think it enables his crossing to be so much better. And I think I agree with Max actually about Lacazette. I think that Lacazette should start this game for his hold-up play and Aubameyang on the left making the runs in behind, because trust me, and I'm with you guys in the sense that I'd like Aubameyang to be a striker. I just don't have the same faith in his hold-up play, and that's where my opinion slightly differs on it. Pepe on the right, though, 100% with you guys on that. Xhaka and Sabas in the middle, and then Mustafi, David Luiz, and as I said, Tierney as my back three, with obviously Matt Macy in goal. So no, obviously.
Also, Tom, I just want to give a quick shout out to you, mate, and I really appreciate you letting me come on. I just want to touch on what everyone was saying as well. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. I've been wanting to come on for quite some amount of time now, so it's actually really nice for me to come on and have my say and talk to you, to all these lovely people in the chat and all the lovely people on here. So yeah, I mean, it's been an absolutely great podcast. I can't lie. It's been absolutely superb. So thank you very much for that, Tom. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for that thing, by the way, you sent me. I'm now using it as my logo. I will be using it. I will be using it from now on. Yeah.
I thought you sent him nudes.
No, God, no. I mean, you can always trust Owen to bring down the mood.
Hey, I didn't get that treatment. Jeez.
Oh, dear me. That's the next level of membership. I didn't know if I'm announcing it now. It's £3 and 1p a month for me. Christ. Oh, dear me. No, pleasure's all mine, Max. It really is, and I really appreciate taking the time evening for coming on. And obviously, a massive thank you for supporting the channel. You can check out Max on Twitter. Do you want to tell people what your Twitter is, Max?
So it's AFC_Shiftz. If you just Google that, you'll find it. If not, just type in TD Shiftz. And you'll probably find it along there. So if just follow me, send me a DM
as well.
Send me a DM, and I'll happily reply to any messages as long as it's not trigger based.
No. Who does? I mean, who replies? No, please do go give Max TD Shiftz a follow on Twitter, TGT family. He's been fantastic, as has Mike. Thank you ever so much. I'm not going to lie, Mike. I thought you were going to be the Gooners podcast agent at some point in the show. And to be fair, you tried your hardest in the chat box. I didn't miss them. I got your comments about Asensio in the chat. I saw all of them, mate.
If I said half the things that Mike wanted me to say, you would have just cut me out.
Yeah, probably. But no, tell people where they can find you, mate.
Actually, I included it right there. It's AFC circa A6. If you follow me and you tell me that you saw me on the show, I mean, gladly pretty much follow anybody that has an FT account.
Awesome. Obviously, the guys, all of their Twitters will be in the description. And, of course, I'll be tweeting it out straight after the show at the Gooner Talk TV. And finally, Owen, always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend. And obviously give your Twitter a shout out. And obviously the stuff that you're doing over at Yammer as well.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is that dodgy spelling under my name there. Owen Young, YOUNG 2.
The amount of people that are in the chat were going, how do you pronounce that?
Trust me, it's a punishment name. My mum doesn't like me very much. Basically, if you jump over to either You Are My Arsenal on Twitter or my page, you can see the weekly segments coming out with the interviews, including our captain himself, Tom, and my latest one with Sash from LT Arsenal.
Yeah, please do go check those out. It was honestly, it was enjoyable writing the answer to those. It made me bring up some old memories of being an Arsenal fan, and it was genuinely a real pleasure to do that. So I appreciate you asking me to. So please, everyone that is listening to this, go over to their Twitters and give the guys a follow. I'll be tweeting their stuff out, and it'll be in the description as well afterwards too. But as it always is, it is a real pleasure to be hosting this show and talk to everyone in the chat box and speak to you on a daily basis. Tomorrow will be my Raw Reactions preview show ahead of the North London Derby. Straight after the game, as always, is the Raw Reactions show. And then 2 podcasts for you on Monday. First of all, we'll have the Tactical Breakdown podcast with Drew and the editor-in-chief of Get Spanish Football News, Kieran Quayle, to talk even more about Thomas Partey and, of course, some other links to Spanish players like Unai Núñez and the like. So that should be interesting, followed by the evening podcast, as usual, with 3 of the regulars. So if you've enjoyed this and you think, well, I'm actually quite good at talking about Arsenal and I think that I'm as good as these guys, if not better, I doubt it. But it'd be nice to see you on the show. If you do want to do that, you just have to sign up as an expert member and then give me a DM at the Goon Talk TV and hopefully we can make your dreams come true. But other than that, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you, as it has these boys. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.